Hello all and welcome to our channel. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the power of the guru. I'm going to be looking at John of God, Sai Baba, Mooji, and Bentinho Massaro. If you've been following our work, I am Raquel here with my partner Davidian. We are human design guides and spiritual business coaches. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about the ethical conversation to the spiritual community in regards to some powerful spiritual leaders and gurus that most of us have heard of, watched videos from, or spent some time studying with. This is a really important ethical conversation to the spiritual community. So if you consider yourself on a spiritual path of any kind, I do think this is a pretty important conversation to have. We're seeing some really intense allegations against some of the biggest spiritual leaders. And we're going to talk about these allegations, and I'm going to provide for you some perspective from my point of view. And you can let me know what you think. Let me know your thoughts. If you disagree with me, that's absolutely fine. I love to have dialogue. However, I'm going to really encourage you to look at things from every perspective. Because if you are a follower of any of these gurus or any of these teachers, sometimes it's hard to have an open mind and to see things from new perspectives. And that's exactly what I want to talk about today. So the first thing I want to address, or the first person I want to address, is John of God. So for those of you who don't know of John of God, he is a healer who worked out of Brazil, and he was known for mystical healings. So John of God is a bit of a rock star healer who has been seen healing many different well-known, famous personalities, including Oprah Winfrey, who had multiple stories about John of God on her show. He claims to have treated millions of followers since the 1970s. Now, the first thing I want to say about all of these gurus is that I am definitely not here to judge whether these allegations are true. I'm not here to say whether they're monsters or gods, and I'm not here to judge. But what I do want to point out is that as long as someone is here on earth, regardless of how advanced their spiritual tools are, regardless of how famous they are, regardless of how powerful they are as healers, they are humans and they do make mistakes. So what I'm here to do is to point out the perspective that I don't think many people are taking in regard to these cases. And I'm going to get into allegations in just 1 minute, but I really want to point out that who I feel is to blame is the spiritual community, the people in the inner circle that are not holding these people accountable, that are putting them above the law, who are yes-manning them and hiding very, very serious crimes. So the allegations with John of God started when a couple of very courageous women came forward. 3 of the women that came forward were Amy Bianc, Sabrina Bittencourt, Dutch choreographer Zahira Lanika Mouse. And they were definitely afraid to come forward. All of them were threatened after revealing the sexual abuse. The minute they actually spoke these words on TV, hundreds of women came forward with similar stories, including John of God's own daughter, who claims to have been raped from age 11 to age 14. He told her that she was his wife in a previous life, and this was part of a spiritual teaching. Now, this is such a gross display of abuse of power. It's as far as I'm concerned, the worst way to abuse your power is to use spiritual teachings to manipulate, control, and basically rape whoever is in your environment. Now, these are the tip of the iceberg of the allegations against John of God. It gets much more gruesome as these stories begin to unravel. Amy Bionk says that she came forward knowing that the workers that were surrounding John of God knew what was going on. One of the workers said that she would wipe ectoplasm off of the mouths of the young girls after they came out of his private healing rooms. She later would say that she believes that it was actually ejaculate that she was wiping off of the mouths of these young girls. She was crying when she realized what she was doing. Now, when you're talking about someone as powerful as John of God, thousands of people coming to his centers, and there is an environment of prayer, meditation, focus. Now, I have never actually seen John of God or been to Brazil to have a healing from him. So I can't say from personal experience whether these healings were actually working or not. But my guess is that they were. From everything I saw of John of God and from the powerful experiences I heard from Oprah, from Gabby Bernstein, from women that I really respect, they claimed that their experiences were real and powerful, and many people did have healing from him. The problem is that the community, because of his success, because of the money that he was bringing in, they decided to cover up his behavior and cover up his criminal activity. Now, why I'm doing this video and why I think it's so important that we begin to talk about this and expose the abuse of power that we see is because it's also happening with famous singers and actors. We see it with, Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, Michael Jackson, all of these people that we have trouble believing that they could be so corrupt, they could abuse their power, be so blatantly abusive. Under the guise of their persona and their images, and they can just lie to the public, and they have so much power and clout that they pretty much got away with it. As far as Michael Jackson, obviously he got off in a court of law, and Bill Cosby's now in jail, and Harvey Weinstein is also having to face the music. And I think it's time that we hold the spiritual leaders to the same standard, and not to say that they're not beautiful and they're not bringing great work out into the world, but it is important for us to not make them above the law. And really the people that are the most responsible for this are the people that are allowing them to get away with it, because the greater the light, the greater the shadow. And these are humans, and if they have distorted sexual promiscuities, desires, then they're going to slowly but surely cross the line. And as long as we allow them, it's going to get further and further, because there are no repercussions for these people. They believe that they're so powerful and worthy that they can get away with anything. The people who are looking outside of themselves for confirmation about their spiritual transcendence and their own awakening, because their souls are leaving their body and being projected onto the guru. And it's time that we pull our power back. And it's time that each and every person acknowledge and understand their own light, their own power. And even if they're not as awake or they're not as evolved as some of these masters, every single person needs to honor themselves and honor their decisions, their integrity above that of the guru. Now, I know that when you are really committed to a spiritual path and you feel that you can learn and grow through a guru, there is a sacred teacher-student relationship that can happen. And that is part of the Indian culture. That's part of much of the Vedanta teachings, and that's part of a lot of the spiritual awakening that's been passed down through generations, is the learning from guru to student. And I do think that the West has really gained from these teachers and from this Eastern knowledge and from much and many of the spiritual teachers. However, it's a wake-up call. We need to understand that in light of what is being exposed and in light of the Me Too movement, we have to hold the spiritual community and this dynamic to a little bit more scrutiny, because when we look to our guru and they can do no wrong, we're actually hurting those people who are being abused, and who really need our support, the young women and the young children. And so with John of God, it gets even worse. John of God is also being exposed for running a sex slave ring. Now, it sounds so ridiculous, you can't even believe that it's true. What is being alleged is that John of God would find low-income women who were in Brazil that were surrounding the area of the compound, bring them in exchange for food, in exchange for a place to stay, and lodging and clothing. The girls would perform sexual acts on John of God, and he would actually impregnate them. The babies were then put on the black market and sold for 40,000 pounds. On top of this, when the girls reached a certain age and were unable to have more children, they were actually murdered. Now, this has not come to court yet. However, I will put a couple of the links below if you want to research this for yourself and see all of the articles that are coming out, how many whistleblowers there are, how many people in the community that are deciding to come forward. You'll be able to see for yourself that this was an excruciatingly criminal behavior that was going on under the guise of John of God, the mystical healer. Now, also, I wanted to bring up a couple of other gurus that we're noticing and that are being called in the public eye for some of their fraudulent behavior, their misuse of power, as well as the scandals that they're involved with. So the other guru I wanted to bring up is Sai Baba. Now, I love Sai Baba. I've had many experiences with him. I've had many dreams with him. I've had actual appearances. I've seen Sai Baba. Now, many of you would probably think that's, maybe impossible, but these have been my experiences. But what has been exposed is that Sai Baba was a pedophile. there are a lot of videos now on YouTube with victims coming forward about sexual abuse, young boys that Sai Baba was molesting at his ashram. So in a lot of the videos, people are going to say pedophile or God. And what I'm saying is that both things can be true. Now, even though that's really hard to stomach and very hard to understand, someone can absolutely 100% be an incredible guru and teacher as well as pedophile. Now, some of the videos are saying about Sai Baba was that he was a fraud with the booty that he supposedly had coming from his palms, as well as the gifts that he was manifesting. There's different videos that claim that was magic tricks and that he had, things that he was pulling from under boxes. And, I really can't comment on that because I have not actually seen a miracle by Sai Baba. So I don't know, but I do think that he was a great teacher and he did hold a lot of a high spiritual frequency and probably did a lot of good. However, that does not mean that he was not a pedophile as well. He was bringing children into his quarters. He was performing oral sex, teaching them to perform oral sex, and their parents were telling them that no matter what Sai Baba tells you to do, you should do it. He's our teacher. He's our guru. He's giving us attention. This is really important for us right now, for our family. And the parents were actually pushing the children into these private quarters because they believed in Sai Baba. Now, this is extremely dangerous, people. We cannot sacrifice our children because we're unwilling to have deductive thinking or have logical thinking when we're approaching gurus, spiritual leaders, or famous people for that matter. And that is what we're seeing with the Michael Jackson case as well, that the parents were so swept up in the fame and the fortune and the Michael Jackson that they weren't able to use their reasoning. They weren't able to see what was right in front of their face, which was their child being sexually raped by Michael Jackson in the room next to them. And as the Me Too movement is exploding, I think what's also coming forward is the voice of our children. When children can't speak about being abused or raped because their abusers are telling them to be quiet, they are so vulnerable. And in so many cases, these children they're not believed. And that's what we're seeing with the whole Leaving Neverland is the two boys that came forward. So many people are not believing them because of the years and years that they defended Michael Jackson. And what I would like for us all to look at right now is that the children need to be protected. And we need to understand that they may not come forward right away when they're being abused. And especially in these very complicated situations like dealing with Sai Baba and dealing with other very powerful people. It's our job to question. It's our job to not put these people on a pedestal and give them our power and let them take away the innocence of our children. I think the biggest problem with Sai Baba is that there was an extreme cover-up. Sai Baba had the support of the top Indian officials, the top Indian political leaders, including the Prime Minister Vajpayee. The Sai Baba organization was worth over $1.5 billion. So this is a big industry. This is a powerful man. This is somebody who had the ability to hush the FBI and to cover up the illegal activity that was going on behind closed doors. Now, Sai Baba has since left his body. There's no way that these allegations will be brought to justice. And that's why I want to bring up two living gurus that we see running cult, or I won't call them cult, but communities of people. Two of the gurus I want to talk about for you to look at and question are Mooji and Bentinho Massaro. So both of these teachers are active. They both have communities. They're both very powerful and growing with millions of followers and fans. And they've both been involved in scandals. So the question is, do you separate the man and the teachings from the behavior? And can you objectively look at the scandal, look at the behavior, while also appreciating the teachings and the message that's coming through these powerful beings? The reason I think it's really important is because we now know that men of power oftentimes abuse that power, and that's very hurtful to the people that they are abusing. And the only ones who can really expose this and bring it to justice are the inner circle. Those people that are complicit in the illegal or the behavior that the gurus are doing, and not saying, no, I don't think this is right, or standing up to the guru. Because what happens is, and what's so interesting about both of these cases is that their teachings are created in such a way that you lose your own ability to judge and your own ability to see things for what they are. Because when you are told that the poisons are of your mind are judgment, and when you see behavior that's not above board, rather than having a neutral perspective as this is criminal behavior and I'm actually going to come forward with this, you can talk yourself out of the activity because it's done by the guru, that the guru has some sort of special free pass to do behavior because it's somehow more godly, it's somehow for the greater good, it's somehow for the learning of the community. Now, Bentinho actually did have an Instagram post that talks about the behavior of the guru, how it should not be questioned, and how the guru, whatever the guru is doing, is for the greater good of the community. And he'll say things because he says there's no personality, and he has no personality, that he does behavior simply because there's, the collective is moving through him, and even though it may upset people, that's what they needed. And so this can be very confusing and also very manipulative. And so really this is a message for anyone who's following these very modern day gurus who are out there making a big impact. It's important for you to open your eyes. And I do not want to say anything bad about Mooji or Bentinho, because I do really love their message and their work. And I'm not in their community. I'm not at the ashram. I live my own life. I do my own spiritual teachings, and I study from a lot of different teachers. And I absolutely will not allow myself to take on one teacher where I give them over my power and I give them over my decision-making process. So that's my choice. However, I do know the power of that because I have done it before, and I do know the power of being involved in a community and following those teachings, because it does take you to new states of consciousness. It does lift you up out of the reality of the day-to-day grind that most people are in, and it does allow you to grow and expand and see things in a new way. However, I do think as a spiritual community, we ask the tough questions. Are these people being held to a different standard? Are they doing things that in any way, shape, or form are abusive to the people in their communities, to any of the women? Are they gaslighting? Are they demanding some type of worship? And these are questions because both of these people have been involved in scandal. There's a lot of rumor around what's going on in the communities. Personally, I think if someone's claiming that they are polygamous and that polygamy should be accepted, I believe that's an abuse of power. It's a man, claiming that they basically just want to have sex with whoever they want, whenever they want. And because they're the gurus, no one's saying no to them. And if you're one of the guru's girls or girlfriends or in that harem, you're probably just thinking, wow, he likes me. Kind of what we saw with R. Kelly also is all of these girls who just willfully gave over their power to get famous, get recognized, be part of the R. Kelly, inner circle, and they were abused, and sex tapes were made. And we are, now hashtag silence R. Kelly, or is it mute R. Kelly, or whatever it is. I think we need to do that for our gurus too. And no one really knows what's going on except for those people behind the scenes, those people in the inner circles. And those are the people that need to open their eyes, be honest. And even though you love these teachers, you are the ones who need to have a clear head to see if what they're doing is above board. Now, being a polygamist with girlfriends and not marrying them, just having a lot of women who are, over 18 isn't necessarily illegal, but I do want to tell you something. The reason this is so personal for me is because when I was in my 20s, I was part of a spiritual community with a shaman who is very famous now. He's never been brought to justice. He was having sex with all of the students, a lot of whom were my best friends, not me. And the girls would consent because they believed that it was part of their spiritual teachings, and he was incredibly manipulative, and he would have sex with a lot of the girls. And because a lot of them were my friends, I watched them suffer. One killed herself. They are not mature enough to understand what's happening in a intimate relationship with a teacher, a man of power. And I think it's incredibly abusive, even if it's not illegal per se, because they are consenting and because they are over 18. But if you see this type of behavior in these communities, walk away. There are other teachers. Matt Kahn, is an incredible spiritual teacher who is above board and has a big heart and seems to be teaching from a pure place of integrity. And there are other teachers that have integrity, and it's our job to just say no. Just like with R. Kelly, it's our job to not buy his music anymore. And we need to stop putting these people up on a pedestal and turning a blind eye to this type of behavior. I'm not saying they're not great people. I'm not saying they're not great artists. I'm not saying that they haven't brought incredible beauty to the world, uplifted and transcended. But isn't it time they be held to a standard? Isn't it time that they heal whatever shadow is coming forward for them? Isn't it time we ask them to be in integrity? I think it is. So thank you guys so much. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you experienced any of this with any of your spiritual teachers? Have you seen abuse out there? What are you seeing? I want to open the door. I want to have the communication. I want to know what your experiences are. So thanks again for being part of my channel. If you want to know more about what we do, we have a ton of videos, in particular about your own spiritual awakenings and finding out who you are and learning more about yourself. So please subscribe to our channel. I will be doing more videos on current events and what's happening, and providing more spiritual conversation for those of you who are on the path of awakening and who are looking to self-actualize in this lifetime. Bye, guys.